Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get started with the services. We're going to open up with the reading of the obituary, and then we're going to have a minister that's going to speak via the phone through the microphone. Anyone that's going to participate, I'm going to ask that you step up and use the microphone. We are live streaming the service today, and that way that everyone can hear what's being said.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Steve, one of Steve's cousins. My nickname's Cricket, my real name's Lois, and we just had to come up and pay tribute to Steve. He was one of our favorite cousins, Scott and Flub and all of them. So I'm going to read the obituary. Stephen David Mitchell of Hughesville, Pennsylvania, passed away on February 16, 2021. Born 13 January 1950 in Westchester, PA. He was the son of the late Clarence Elwood Mitchell Iggy and Florence Marie Hughes Mitchell, sis. Stephen grew up on West Bernard Street, the Boulevard, and attended the Westchester Area School District. While in school, Steve ran track and learned gymnastics and karate. Always well-dressed, Steve worked as a lifeguard at the Charles Mountain Center for the Arts, better known as the Community Center, and at Thatcher's Pharmacy during his early years. He also played drums in various bands in the area. After high school, Stephen completed his 2-year degree in computer science at Delaware Community College. He went on to become the first African-American male bank teller at the First National Bank in Westchester. Steve's passion, drums, became a blessing and a curse. Because he played so well, he attracted both positive and negative influences. It was the negative influences that changed the course of his life. Then feeling stuck in a downward spiral, Steve transformed his life. Beating his demons, he changed his life and moved on, relocating to a town near Williamsport, PA. Steve started a new life working at a local newspaper. He then went on to become an automotive salesman, selling some of the finest American and Japanese automobiles. During this time, he became a dynamic speaker for AA and NA, sponsoring and saving many lives, holding church while delivering his presentations. While there, Steve married Nancy Boyer. Although the marriage ended, they stayed lifelong friends. Steve then found his adoptive family, his family, daughters Amy Baker, Aaron Baker, 4 grands, Sage Graham, Kyle Graham, Maddie Baker, and Gavin Laws, as well as friend Lori Cost. Went on to provide care for Steve in his late days. Stephen is survived by 3 brothers, Sheldon Mitchell of Westchester, Scott Mitchell, Lori of Herndon, Virginia, and Donald Galmore, Sharon of Valley Township, Sister Pamela Galmore of Westtown, PA, 2 aunts, Annie Mae Hughes of Wilmington, Delaware, and Ernestine Patterson of Philadelphia, PA, 6 nieces and nephews, and a whole gang of cousins and friends. He was preceded in death by his brother Gary Galmore.
Thank you all for coming here. Good afternoon. I'm Scott Mitchell. Just that fast, I forgot the order of things. I've got Reverend Porter on the phone. He's a good friend of Steve's, a lifelong friend, and he asked that he speak at the services, so I'm going to let him speak right now. This is Reverend Porter speaking for Steve Mitchell. Reverend?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, here we go. You're on.
For years, I have been a friend of the family. I've been involved in all types of celebrations as well as funeral services. My impression of Steve is one who was blessed with a talent, and that talent was his charm. That is something that only a few people can brag about. Some people are blessed with the talent after they do a lot of wonderful things. But a few people in this world are blessed with talent that is automatic as soon as you meet them. And as soon as I met Steve and we became acquainted, I was very, very impressed by his charm. Charm can be positive. It can also have a negative effect. But overall, I love Steve Mitchell very much. He was bluntly honest with me, and I appreciate the relationship and the friendship that we had over the years. And my prayer in his behalf and for the family, you will be in my prayers and my thoughts, and the mercy and the love of God. And I've always praying that you will do the right thing in life, and the Lord will bless you. God bless you this day and the days to come. This is from Anderson Porter, age 90. God bless you all.
God bless you, Mr. Reverend Porter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I'm hanging up.
Okay, sir.
Continue to have a great day.
Thank you, sir.
You're
I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
All righty.
Bye.
Bye-bye. With that, we'd like to have a poem by Kim.
Good afternoon, everyone. My condolences to the family and to the friends. The poem is from Nancy, and it's called, Would You Cry If I Died? Would you cry if I died? Who would care if I died? Would you remember my touch, the way that I walked, the rhythm of my talk, the sunshine of my smile, the sound of my laugh, the song that I sang, my favorite color, the exact brown of my skin? Who would cry if I died, ceased to exist? Know of all the time I wished for a little peace and tenderness. Share my memory of love never given, the sting of indifference. Who would cry if I died? I cried. Love, Duchess.
Thank you very much. Is Eric here? Hey, Eric. All right. Eric would like to say something. And I must say, I haven't met you yet. But for some reason, with that mask, I knew that was you.
That's a problem I have with the local police.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much. Let me see if I can get this thing wrangled off. Without taking hearing aids off. Good afternoon. Good to see all of you. Condolences to family, all the friends. I was asked to say something about Steve, and I was thinking, what in the world am I going to say? Well, Pastor hit it right on the head. One charming mother, let me tell you that. Anybody that could sell me a new car and then convince me to drive all over Virginia and Maryland picking up drum sets that he wanted to buy is charming. Okay, let's make no mistake about that. But that charm also came with a dedication of friendship, a dedication of being there for other people, and a dedication to passing a message of recovery along that he had received and so graciously and gratefully gave away. I remember him coming into the rooms. That's how long I've known him. I think it's over 30-some years at least. But I'm looking at his picture now and I'm thinking, that ain't the same guy. He was really bedraggled when he got here. I think he had 3 pairs of underwear, maybe, or 4, maybe. He just was at the end, like most people were. And what he did was amazing. He went through treatment, and then he stayed at a house in Milton where I think the failure rate at that place was well over 95% at least. I mean, if you were at Don Becker's, you were bounced. Let's just put it that way. He didn't get it. He didn't get bounced. He stayed there. He did everything he was told to do. He did it better than he should have, and he gave nobody any guff. And he listened. The most important quality he had, other than his charm, was, of course, his ability to listen. And he could hear. He could hear what you were saying, and had deep amount of respect for that. But the thing of it was that he made the grade. I think it said he was selling papers, or he's selling newsprint advertising. I knew him when he was flipping burgers at a truck stop. And he would actually sometimes have to walk to that place, which is probably a good 3 miles one way, but he did it, and he didn't miss a shift. He proved what kind of character he had at that point. I remember seeing him at the noon meetings. The old man Jack bus would roll up, or the Westmobile would roll in, and out they would climb, and then they would come. And Steve always had a smile on his face, something good to say about somebody, and always did what he could to help anybody that was struggling. He didn't know what he was doing, but he was just trying to do it anyway. But that was the quality. That was what he presented. That's what he gave. He stuck around long enough to get those jobs and keep progressing and keep doing what he needed to do, and he became very successful. Not only in a financial way, but in a spiritual and they would come moral way too. And he became very, very good at helping other people. He dedicated a good 25 years of his life to a Sunday night meeting at a treatment center at White Deer Run. Every Sunday night he would be there dragging along sometimes non-willing participants to speak or to share there. And he would be just so encouraging and enthusiastic that he made some differences, a lot of differences. And the qualities, once again, of his character shone through. He never missed it. He tried never to miss it. And only towards the end here did he have to actually give up and just let it go, which was not only tough, but also, a little thorn in his side. But still, his spirit was there, as it will always be. No one's going to replace him up there, that's for sure. And nobody's going to replace him in life either. If you had the pleasure to know this man, the honor, actually, you knew somebody that was honest, you knew somebody that was dedicated to you. If he told you he's going to do something, he did it. And that's rare today. I mean, he meant what he said what he meant, and he did what he said he was going to do. That's the measure of the man right there. And I was really honored to be his friend. And then asked to be his sponsor towards the end as his sponsor got sick. So we talked a lot. We talked about everything. And what I found out is that Steve had a big, big heart. And he had a depth of understanding of people and a depth of understanding of others that, man, I wish I had. He never gave up on anybody. And the times that he didn't succeed, so to speak, he would always look at it in a way that I may not have succeeded, but at least I kicked the door in a little. And that was the way to look at it. And it was a good way for him, and a good way for any of us to look at it. He deeply loved his family. He really did. Aaron, Amy, Paige, you guys, oh, just adored you guys. Do anything for you. And that's the kind of person he was. When you were in, you were in. Even if you didn't want to be, you were in. He made sure that you felt that you were cared about. Some of the final talks that we had were just breezy little discussions about life and about death. And I know that he went peacefully because that's what he said. He said, I'm at peace with this. He said, I've done everything I wanted to do. I bought 6 drum sets. Couldn't figure out the number, but I understood the idea. I know he was a good drummer. I do know that. He was an excellent drummer. I was a drummer myself for years, but just in the way we would talk about drumming and that, I knew that it was a passion of his and just a solid thing. And it took a long time for him to get back at it, and maybe it was a little too late, but the reality was he derived a great deal of pleasure from it, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people derived pleasure from hearing him. But when he would speak at a meeting, he would always say his full name. He'd always say what he was, and he had a conviction when he spoke, a deep conviction. And he would go the extra mile to make sure that he was at a meeting. I think I remember a story that I'll relate from his early days in recovery, where, Mark, I think that you had put him on a coffee detail down somewhere. Yeah, and it was a long way away. Was it Harrisburg? Yeah, it was Harrisburg. He didn't have a car, and he would do anything he could to get there, and did. Many times did. And that's the dedication. And he had that same dedication towards the people that he knew, the people that he loved, and the people that he cared about. If you were his friend, you were his friend, and that meant everything. You got everything from him that he had, and you give everything back because he was charming. Okay, he really was. I had the honor and the pleasure of knowing the man, and I can't think of anything better than that because, honestly, it was a gift to me. It really was. It's rare that you see the whole package, and there he was. And I'm forever grateful that I knew him. I'm forever grateful that I was his friend. I was forever grateful that I saw that smile. Every time I turned around, there he was with a smile. You know? And I'm thinking to myself, God, doesn't he ever go away? No. He knew what he wanted in life, and he followed his heart and got it. And he had a rich life, really rich life. When you have the people that love you so deeply, and the family that cares for you and cares for you so deeply, it doesn't matter what you do or who you are, you're there. You've done it. And Steve did it. Thank you all, and peace.
You know, I'm not one that comes off the cuff a lot. Sometimes I say things that people don't understand or I shouldn't say. So I had to write this down. Before I read what I wrote, I want to give thanks to all the people that helped out with this funeral. Aaron and Amy, I want to thank you very much for the pictures and the things that you provided. I especially want to thank you, Elaine, for the coins and the pictures, and Lori, the pictures you see over there. Some of those pictures of Steve playing drums I haven't seen in 30 years. And you guys, you know about his charm. You never got to hear him play those drums. I mean, he was one of the best drummers in the area. So I just wanted to get that out there. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for all that you've done for this. You've done a beautiful job, and I really thank you. I struggled with this. I've known Steve all of his life. I watched Steve transform himself. One of the things that I didn't know so much about until recently was how much of a life that Steve made up here and the family that he had up here. And I was able to see that when Steve got sick. And as I was coming up to see him, I would meet certain different people. And I'd start hearing these stories, and I'm like, golly days, they're singing the same stories I hear back in Pennsylvania, in Westchester. You know, these people really knew Steve. And I was really surprised by that. So I know that Steve had two families. He had a family in Westchester, Pennsylvania, and he had a family up here. God only knows that trying to write about that, it was hard. So I gave it up to him, and I said, God, give me something. And he did. Might be a little bit different, but here it goes. Today is Palm Sunday. Today we Christians celebrate the triumphal entry of Christ into Jerusalem, 1 week before his resurrection. Palm Sunday also marks the beginning of Holy Week, a solemn, here we go, a solemn week focusing on the final days of Christ's life. Holy Week culminates on Easter Sunday, the most important day in Christianity. Easter marks the spirit of rebirth, life, and is a remembrance of Jesus' great sacrifice for us. Easter symbolizes Christ's victory over death and the promise of eternal life to those who believe in him. I guess you're asking me, Scott, why are you saying this? And I say that to say this. Steve believed in Christ. And I believe that on February 16th, 2021, he also had victory and triumph over death, a promise from God. He's with the Lord, and we should rejoice. May any tears be tears of joy. You wouldn't cry if Steve had told you he was going to Los Angeles. You wouldn't have cried if he told you he was going to Tampa or Hawaii. How much more that he's going to be with the boss, God. So don't cry. If you do, let them be tears of happiness, tears of joy for Steve. Because there's no more secrets, no more lies, no turmoil, no anxiety, and definitely no more bills to pay. And I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, Write, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from henceforth. Yea, saith the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, and their works will follow them. Revelations 14:13. Steve's finally at peace. So let's rejoice. Rejoice on this Palm Sunday that Jesus provided a way for Stephen to have victory and triumph over death. As the song says, name above all names, worthy of our praise. My heart will sing, how great is our God. A saint, Stephen David Mitchell. Back at his passion, playing drums with God. He's in God's band. Although he's not the leader. Yet. I'm sure that he's jazzed things up a little bit in heaven. And I was given this song by a friend, Elaine, and I'd like to play it because it reminds me of my brother in heaven. Here we go. Steve Mitchell, Leroy Foster, Mike Mishashik, Steve Rulon. You know the names. They're up there with God right now. Jazzing it up. Big bro. It's my story. You all know it. That's right. Talk to me. God bless you, Big Bill. Dale, do you? God bless you, Steve. God bless you. With that, we have Dale that would like to speak something?
No. This is my story. Amen. What's a short, fat, white guy doing up here talking about Steve Mitchell? We just met not too long ago, and I feel just after the short conversations we had, as I did when I was around Steve, I felt part of the family, feeling part of something was important to him, as it is important to most people in recovery. I'm a recovering addict and alcoholic myself. The transitioning period we talked about toward the end of the time when Steve was in hospice, and I visited and we spent 2 hours together and we prayed together and we talked about going home. He was real comfortable with it. I was asked not too long ago to say something. I spent 27 years rubbing elbows with this guy. I can't capsulize it in a 10 or 15 minute period. But I can touch on some things, so if you'll bear with me. To the Mitchell family, significant others, grandkids, relatives, caretakers, friends of Bill W., participants, co-workers, and to my brother Steve. It's an honor to have been asked to say something today and be in the presence of so many people that this man touched, and have watched some of you blessed by knowing and being part of Steve's life and helping him in his transition from this life to eternity with Jesus. Thank you as a friend and a member of his recovering family. We deeply appreciate it. Many years ago, approximately 28, I met Steve Mitchell at a 12-step meeting and instantly gravitated to him because of what he shared, how he shared it. I knew he was talking, when he was talking, it was from the heart. People listened. Was not just from the head. He knew what he was talking about and had something that I wanted, that experience, the strength and hope that we talk about. Albeit we became friends quickly, and because of that, the language of the heart, his heart, emulated through me. I was riddled with some ongoing ideations of returning to the old life of using, looking at some serious legal consequences and problems, and the more I hung around Steve, the more I knew that he was the real deal and cared greatly and listened intently to what I was saying all the time. I knew somehow I needed to connect with him because of not just what he shared, but how he shared it. Steve had this uncanny ability to communicate and a street sense that emanated through his pores because of his experience in the past, his experience from being from the streets of Philly, and his experience of the insanity of the disease of addiction. He had been to that other side, which I was very familiar with, especially being from Philly myself. And somehow he came out of the insanity, moved into a relationship with God and others that was not just inviting but motivating because of his zest for life. He desired to help others, his drive for doing and being the best he could no matter what he did. It was evident to me in some of his relationships, and his love for playing the drums, and evident in his profession of being a sales representative and working in the car business. Early on, we worked together in the car business. That was a treat. We worked together in the car business, but then I got a job closer to my house in Bloomsburg. I'm the guy that lives in Bloomsburg that has all these Thanksgiving Day bashes. I remained in business, in the car business for 15 years and became a finance manager. We would banter on the phone all the time about the car business, all the people we run into, and all the great deals we put together, and all the money we were making, and it was great. It was a great and honest way to share the language of the heart. Steve would call me often and talk shop. It was always about recovery, though, with Steve. With Steve's example, it was a concept I soon developed early for myself. Steve was engaged in giving it away. He said that to me early on, got to give it away to keep it, cuz. He always used to call me cuz. I always felt part of the family. Cuz? What are you doing, cuz? There's a chapter written in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous in the second edition of the big book. It's called The Professor and the Paradox, that Steve referenced often. Let me share it with you, as I know Steve would love it. The first paradox is we surrender to win. On the face of it, surrendering certainly does not seem like winning, but it is in recovery. Only after we have come to the end of our rope, hit a stone wall in some aspect of our lives beyond which we can go no further, only when we hit bottom in despair and surrender can we accomplish sobriety which we could never accomplish before. We must, and we do, surrender in order to win. Steve was a winner. Second one is we die to live. That's a beautiful paradox, straight out of the biblical idea of being born again or losing one's life to find it. When we work out our program in the old life of guzzling and drugging and clouded thinking, all that goes with it gradually dies away, and we acquire a different and a better way of life. As our shortcomings are removed, one life of us dies, and another life of us lives. We in recovery, we die to live. The third one is we suffer to get well. There is no way to escape the terrible suffering and remorse and regret and shame and embarrassment which starts us on the road to getting well from our affliction. There is no new way to shake out the hangover. You can't hang it out to dry on the clothesline. It's painful, and for us, necessarily so. So we suffer to get well. Fourthly, we give it away to keep it. Man, he was good at that. That seems absurd and untrue. How can you keep anything if you give it away? But in order to keep whatever it is we get in recovery, we must go about giving it away to others for no fees or rewards of any kind. We cannot afford to give away what we have received so freely when we cannot give away or afford what we've been given so freely through recovery. We had better get ready for our next drunk. It will happen every time. We've got to continue to give it away in order to keep it. And that's what I learned from Steve. Give it away to keep it, man. Got to share your story. You got to share your language. You got to share your heart. Through the years, we would go together to the rehab that Eric was talking about at White Deer Run. He was up there years, and share a speaking engagement in front of hundreds of men, countless number of times. We did that for many years. We would invite others, some of whom are here today, to honor his life. He engaged as much participation as he could carry the message, because I believe he knew that the hand of God had delivered him out of the same pits of hell that many of us experienced, and he wanted to return the favor through his experience, strength, and hope in sharing his story, his language of his heart with others. We went to a lot of meetings together. My friends came up from Allentown to go out to White Deer to speak, all because Steve said, "Hey, cuz, get your buddies to come up from Allentown, get them up there." And that's what we did. It has been said, never does a man feel so close to his Creator as to when he shares the language of his heart. Think about that. Remember the last time you spilled your heart, your emotions and feelings out to somebody? How did you feel afterwards? Though maybe there weren't any immediate results of that conversation, there was a certain serenity and peace and a lift of maybe a burden or two. This is the language that I learned from giving away. This is the language I learned from Steve. And so it goes with knowing my brother Steve. We have many holidays at my house, many trips to the house, just because. No reason, just to grab something to eat in a neighborhood home in Espy along the Susquehanna River, as it was for many Thanksgivings at my house through the years. We'd have 30, 40 people. We'd make tons of food. People would bring food. And he used to call me, he says, and hey, cuz, you got the bird in the oven? Hey, cuz, you got that ham cooking? You know, hey, we're going to bring some mac and cheese, Lori, make mac and cheese. And, you know, and we'd have a slew of people show up. And we'd just sit down and share and talk and with food and fellowship. It was wonderful. We'd banter all the time and watch TV. He loved when people would come over and we'd share. He loved to hear the language of the heart and the experience, strength, and hope from others. He loved recovery. He loved people, and it was obvious. Essentially, after hearing Steve's story and being around him a period of time, I wasn't just acquainted with him, but I identified with him in so many ways. It was then, as it was with a few people I met in recovery, that I knew that I was being invited by God to participate in this man's life. So I too then began to learn how to pay it forward so others can experience the blessing of living substance-free without having a free conscience of not remembering what I did the night before. It is and was a wonderful way to live, and it was even more wonderful sharing it with my friend Steve. There is no replacing a friend like Steve, no replacing the generosity, the love, the kindness, the understanding, the knowledge and guidance, and most of all, the commitment of conscience for his recovery and his friends. I know he wasn't perfect. He made mistakes because we would talk about it all the time, his and mine. He'd point mine out, and I'd point them out to him. He knew I wasn't without fault, and he knew neither him nor I or anyone else was perfect. There was only one that was, and he died for our iniquities. And Steve knew that. We talked about that. In the last months, we would have conversations more directed to eventual outcomes of his dilemma. He would say to me, you know, cuz, it's okay. I'm tired. I'm just tired. I'm okay with what's going to happen because I'm going to be in the promised land. I assured him that I was here for him and that I would do whatever I could to help him fight and fight like crazy, because that's what I did and still do to a great degree. If he wanted to, he said, okay. He said, I'll let you know. He never let me know. When he said that, I thought of the Serenity Prayer that we recite every time we have a meeting, and it was written by a theologian, Reinhold Niebuhr. It goes like this: God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, wisdom to know the difference, living one day at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking as he did this sinful world as it is, nor as I would have it, trusting that he will make all things right if I surrender to his will, that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy in the next. Steve knew that there were many ingredients that went into his life and the recovery process, and all those he tried to accomplish one day at a time, because he knew this disease was devastating, how devastating it was, and was very hard to do without doing it one day at a time. But in the end, as he would talk about many times, he knew it came down to 6 words: honesty, open-mindedness, willingness to change people, places, and things. The how part of the process, the honesty, open-mindedness, willingness to change, that's what Steve would try to accomplish to the best of his ability and his humanness. He knew he was never perfect. Years ago, after I just met Steve, I moved to Allentown for a job and to be closer to my son. I ran into a gentleman I sold a car to that happened to have a couple of sober homes who had gone through the sober homes, and Eric, we were just talking about this, and I sold him a car and met him, and that was Don Becker. I met Don, and I thought, wow, this guy's fantastic. He's got to be okay. He knows Steve Mitchell. We talked about Steve, too. It was wonderful. Then after a couple of years went by, I got a call about this gentleman who had the sober houses, that he went back out, and he drank again, and he died. And I called Steve, and Steve was enamored by it, riveted. It was this gentleman that gave him a place to live, and now he was dead because of 6 things that didn't change: people, places, and things, honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. We talked about that quite often, a lot. It was a catalyst for both of us to keep things simple. That's what my friend Steve did. He tried to keep it simple. I've learned that knowing Steve and people like him, that I was not the teacher, but the student. I was not the driver, but the passenger. I was invited to participate in the incredible honor of watching this man, my friend, interact, grow, lead by example as he helped others fulfill their dreams, to help them live a happy, productive, and purposeful life, one day at a time. A true gift to us, a true gift to his friends and family, and a true gift to sobriety. There was a quote that he liked to recite quite often, and it was by Herbert Spencer. It was in the AA literature under the spiritual experience, and I quote the last couple of paragraphs. Most emphatically, we wish to say that any alcoholic capable of honesty facing his problems in the light of our experience can recover, provided he does not close his mind to all spiritual concepts. He can only be defeated by an attitude of intolerance or belligerent denial. We find that no one need have difficulty with the spirituality of the program. Willing, honest, and open-mindedness are the essentials of recovery, but these are indispensable. Herbert Spencer said, as is written at the end of the chapter, there is a principle which is a bar against all information, which is proof against all arguments, and which cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. That principle is contempt prior to investigation. Steve loved to quote that, to remind us that we should not have contempt without investigating. I'm reminded of the St. Francis prayer that we quite often recite in the spirit of love. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace, that where there is hatred, I bring love, that where there is wrong, I might bring the spirit of forgiveness, that where there is discord, I may bring harmony, where there is error, I bring truth, where there is doubt, I bring faith, where there is despair, I bring hope, where there is shadows, I bring light, where there is sadness, I bring joy. Grant that I seek rather to comfort than to be comforted, to understand and to be understood, to love than to be loved, for it is, and this was Steve, by self-forgetting that one finds. It is by forgiving that one is forgiven. It is by dying that one awakens to eternal life. My dear friend Steve was a channel of love and life and faith and hope, and a light in the midst of darkness sometimes. He understood. I'll miss you. I'm sure we all will. And his last phone call to me was, hey, I'm just checking in, cuz, see how you're doing. We shared a dinner one last time over the holidays. He called me up and he says, I hope you got some poke cooking so I can get on that chair and get into a pork nod. And that's what we did. We had some sauerkraut and pork. He got on that chair and went into a pork nod. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Thy will be done. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and power and the glory forever and ever. Just checking in, cuz I love you and miss you. Brother Dale.
You haven't learned anything here. You learned that Steve's people skills were fine. It was his tolerance for ignorance and idiots that needed work. Elaine, you'd like to say something? Got Miss Elaine Dukeman coming up. Once again, she's the one, you can thank her for the pictures that are up here today and the coins. I think she did a really good job.
Good afternoon. First, I want to start with just to follow up. In this book are thank yous from his customers. And there's not one in here that says they are not unsatisfied, how much they appreciate his service, his ability, and at your convenience, if you'd like to, I'd like to share it, because every page, every thank you card and letter of people that were so satisfied, who were returning customers, who loved Steve. I met Steve when I was 18 years old. I was introduced to Steve by Tom Stonewall. And Steve had a band, but nobody sang. And I sang, and Tom, or Stonewall, says, "Here you go, man. This is the girl." But his band, they really didn't want a singer. But he knew that I sang. And going back a little bit, we had a good relationship. We had fun. And him being a ladies' man, women gravitated to Steve. And I grew up and I accepted him for what he was and what he wasn't. And the good thing is, lovers come and go, but your friends, your real friends, are forever. And it doesn't matter who they're with or where they're at. If they're your friend, they're your friend. Steve and I never lost touch. And even when I got married, he would have called me. Because he had a girlfriend who worked for the phone company, and he was able to find my phone number. He called me one day, and I said, "Until you tell me how you got this phone number." I kept hanging up on him, and he would call me back. I said, "Tell me who got you this phone number." And he did. And I said, "Okay, being honest is the most important thing with your friends. And even if it's negative, if it's not the answer that you wanted, be able to accept it." And we were that way. And there wasn't a time in my life, all of my successes, he knew about all of them. He was proud of me like a husband, like a father, because he watched me grow up and become something that he was proud to be able to say, "It's Leo." He named me Leo. Everybody, in fact, at one point, I had people ask me, "What is your real name?" Because everybody knew me as Leo. He introduced me as Leo, I was Leo. And when I would tell people, "My name is Elaine Smith," they was like, "That's a lie, that's not true." I said, "No, it is, it really is." But my husband today, I don't know how long I've been married to him, but he knows Steve. He knows Steve. And like, when he met me, I said, "Listen, I have a lot of friends who are men. A couple of them used to be my boyfriend, but they're still my friends. I don't give up on my friends. If there was ever something there to be salvaged, we salvaged it. I didn't care who he was seeing or who he was with, and he didn't care who I was with and who I was seeing. But we are friends." And he always told me how much he loved me. He would never let me forget that, no matter where I was. I was performing, and I used to compete in social dance competition, and he showed up. I was spinning around, and when it was over, he was right there. He was just so proud. He said, "Leo, you've gotten so good." And I was like, "How did you know I was here?" He would always seem to be there. He, just like a proud parent. He was always there, and he was always proud of me. It made me forgiving for his trespasses. I always forgave him. But we had our friendship. It was not it was a bigger love, because it wasn't a sexual love. It was a love that will always stand through time, no matter what. Anything, if he was sad or unhappy about something that was going on in his life or in any of his relationships, he always knew that he could call me and he had my ear. And I would always talk him down. And I used to say, I said to him, "Steve, you're in AA, but you're not a big drinker." And he said, "I know." He said, "It was the drugs." He said, "But AA had the best program." He said, "And that's why." He said, I tried Al-Anon. He said, "And it just wasn't reaching me." He said, "But AA," he said, "it's the best program." And he used to go to meetings at lunchtime. It just amazed me. Twice a day, he was going to meetings because he felt he needed that, and he would encourage other people. At one place that he worked at, there were other people there that were in the program, and he would get them tell me they were going to a lunch meeting. I'm like, "A lunch meeting?" And they did, and he did. And there were a few times when he was trying to make amends when he was in Eagleville, and I was still so hurt when I found out just how bad things were. And he said, I just want to make amends. And he said, "I need you to come to this meeting because it's about you." And I did. I came up and I went to the meeting, and he said, "You don't realize how much, what an impact our relationship had on my life, and how I wasn't able to be the person that you needed me to be, and I am regretful." And I forgave him for that, because I watched him grow and become a really good person, and I was happy that he had gotten his life together. And then it broke my heart when his body started to shut down, when he started to get sick, and he found out that, becoming diabetic, and it was his body shutting down. And it broke his heart to have to take anything for pain. He didn't want to, because he strived so hard to get clean, and then all of a sudden his body put him in a situation where he was in pain and didn't want to take any type of narcotic, and it wasn't his choice anymore. His mom and I had a great relationship, and there were many times when he would come over to my apartment and he would say, you Leos are all alike." And I would go, "What happened? What did your mother say?" "Oh, nothing." I said, No. "What happened?" I said, "She told you the truth about something, didn't she?" And he'd go, "Yeah." He said, "You Leos." He's like, but she always made me feel at home, and I miss Florence. I would ring the doorbell, and she would say, "Elaine, you don't ring the doorbell. You come in here." She says, "You're like one of my children." And she was left-handed, I was left-handed. She was teaching me how to crochet. And that would be the only way I could learn. I would have to learn from a left-handed person. And Steve came in, and he thought that was just the cutest thing, that I was learning to crochet from his mom. But I'll miss those obscure phone calls that I would get at any time, and it would be, he just would want to know what was going on in my life, how I was, to tell me what was going on in his life, and towards the end, I tried to come up here. It kept snowing and keeping me away, and the night that I was coming, I hurt my back and ended up in the hospital 3 days, and it just wasn't for me to see him that way. I'll miss him because we go back a long ways. We had so many comparisons, the same thing. My middle brother's nickname is Flub. His brother is Flub. I have twin brothers who are musicians, and their birthday is the same day as Scott's. And my one twin brother died 2 years ago. He was a drummer, and he died from cardiomyopathy, but it was from being an alcoholic. And they called on me to help with all of that, and Steve was like, wow, Leo, that was great that you did that for Charles. But the other thing that I had said to Scott, many years ago, there was a jazz drummer who lived in Coatesville named Coatesville Harris. And he lived across the street from my aunt. And I used to notice, like, he was throwing something down out of the window, and this guy would pick it up. He was putting his numbers in. So when he passed away, I went to the funeral, and Steve and I think it was one of the Spriggs brothers, not Hyatt, Harry, were there. And we thought it was so cool that this old jazz drummer was in the coffin, and they brought in his drums. And I said, Steve, that is so cool. He said, that is really cool. He thought it was so cool that he got remembered, that he was a great drummer. And we wanted to do that, but we just didn't have the ability to get them here because he had so many. But he had drums like hairdressers have scissors and makeup, and it was like hard for him to pass up a set of drums. I still want to know where these fives are. He had clear drums. I was like, where are they at? But it was hard for him to not, it's like a woman in cologne. You can't help but buy some. He loved drums. And it's just sad to know that up here, they didn't get to hear him. Huh? Depending on your scissors. But you still gotta keep buying them. Keep buying them. My first pair were $500. That's just crazy, but that's just what you do when you want something. And that's the way he was. It wasn't money, it was what he wanted. And he would always find a way to get what he needed. So, with that, I just want to say one other thing. One time I stopped to see him in Paoli, and I said, Steve, I heard a song that reminded me of you. In fact, it's just you. And he goes, what is it, Leo? And it was Smooth Operator. And I sang it for him, and he goes, you know what, Leo? Somebody else said that to me. I said, it was probably a woman, wasn't it? And he goes, yeah, it was. I said, that's you. If you ever get a chance to look at those lyrics, they are every bit Steve Mitchell. Thank you.
This brief period, I guess those of you that didn't know him really well are getting a good education on how Steve was. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? see you, kind of. Okay. On behalf of my brother, I want to thank you all for coming out. I don't know if you know it yet, but he's got a couple of brothers here. His brother Sheldon in the back, his brother Donnie right here. They're his Westchester brothers. And I'd like to thank my cousins and friends that had come out today. The last time they came out and I was somewhere, I said a little joke, and I'm going to say it again. Your friends will bail you out of jail, but your best friend will be sitting next to you saying, "Daggone, that was fun." That's my friends. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Ladies and gentlemen, this does conclude the services at the funeral home. You're welcome to stay and visit as long as you would like. When you're ready to exit, you can just go through the double doors. Thank you.